Welcome back to The Boys in the Iceberg, the podcast, where we watch The Legend of Korra. As always, I'm Caleb Bader.
And I'm Harley Davis.
And guys, we got a little bit of surprise for you later in the episode, so you might want to stick around for that. I'm not going to tell you exactly when it's coming, but you'll know it when it gets there. This week we took the last week off because we wanted to sort of let Korra Season 3 simmer a little bit so we could have like a fresh grasp on Season 4, because I have never seen this season before. So I wanted to go in with a strong mind and a steady resolution, and I did, and I didn't like what I saw.
So without further ado, here's the first episode of Season 4, after all these years. In the 3 years since the insurrection of the Red Lotus, Red Public has adapted to the spirits living in the metropolis, accepting them as a part of the city. Asami Sato's Future Industries has modernized Central City Station, and the great-nephew of the late Hu Ting, Prince Wu, is being groomed to hold the still-vacant throne of Earth Kingdom. With Mako serving as his bodyguard... Oh, sorry, that was a whole... Kuvir and Batar Jr., along with their supporters, have traveled the Earth Kingdom in an attempt to reunite it under her militaristic rule. Kai and Opal stop a robbery in the state of Yi, but they are unable to restore the town's supply lines, leaving the reluctant governor no choice but to agree to Kavira's terms, and he signs over the control of the state to her. They're just giving everything away in this overview. Korra, who is set to reunite with Team Avatar in Republic City, has instead been traveling alone for the past 6 months, hiding her identity as the Avatar.
Okay, yeah, so we get hardly any Korra in this episode. And it's a giant time skip, which I absolutely despise in TV shows.
Caleb, give us another example of time skips that you despise.
Parks and Recreation,
okay,
the 7th season. True Blood, there's a time skip in there, which made me lose interest.
I've never watched True Blood, so
it's actually pretty good.
Didn't have interest to begin with. Is that the one with Sam Witwer?
Don't know the name. So I don't know.
Is it about vampires and werewolves?
Yes, it's about vampires.
Well, I guess Teen Wolf is too. So.
Oh, yeah, that's probably what you're thinking of. But yeah, it just sort of takes me out of the TV show when there's a time skip that I wasn't around to see, and I just have to. It's like I don't know who the characters are anymore,
and it doesn't make sense either. Sorry if I was yelling. It doesn't make sense either because you're with them every single day of their jobs almost, or like maybe every other day, at least every week of their jobs or their lives, so to speak. You know, like in Parks and Rec. You're with them all the time, every day, every adventure they have, and then they're like, hey, 3 years later.
Yeah.
And you're like, what just happened?
Everyone's lives are changed. Like, I just don't like it. It just completely takes me out of the show. This one, I will say, wasn't that bad, because I wasn't, like, really into the characters to begin with.
No, but there are some noticeable changes. This is just all not locked down tight. Anyways, there are some noticeable changes, like, visually with the characters. None of them look... Mako looks weird.
Yeah, I didn't even recognize Mako.
Mako looks really weird. Like, I knew it was Mako because of his voice, but you physically did not recognize Mako?
No, I didn't realize that was Mako until they said, hey, Mako, or whatever they said to him. I don't know.
Hey, Mako, a character we need to reintroduce because nobody knows what you look like.
Yeah.
Korra, they completely cut her hair off.
That's fine.
She's bald now.
I actually understand the Korra thing.
She still looks alike. Like, she looks... And it showed...
And, like, her attire is similar.
It showed her cutting her hair.
Bolin looks completely different.
I think that's just the clothes he's wearing and
his hair. He like slicks it back.
Oh, he did change his hair, didn't he?
Asami, I don't remember if she was she changed all that much. Probably not.
She just looks more grown up.
Does she?
Yeah.
Explain how, Harley.
She just does. Like, she looks, I don't know, more womanly features, less girlish features.
Oh, I mean, I guess Kai. We get to see Kai. He
still looks like a tool,
but he looks a lot older.
And I'm surprised we saw Kai and Opal instead of Kai and Janora, which kind of surprised me. Well, I would assume that they would be together since they were.
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
They set that up at the end of the last season, and then 3 years later, they're just not. I guess for 3 years, I would hate to be running around with my significant other every single day. I'd blow my brains out.
Okay, we do get to see Janora as well. Who has she grown her hair back?
She has now grown all of her hair back to the style it was.
That's a lot of hair.
3 years, man.
3 years?
It's doable.
Hair doesn't grow that fast, though.
Doable.
Like,
she just spent a lot of time out in the sun.
That's a lot of hair.
Just spent a lot of time out in the sun.
What?
A lot of the right vitamins.
Okay. because they know about vitamins in this world.
Maybe.
Milo, he's grown up quite a bit. He has hair now, which is odd.
He's no longer... We've only seen one episode of him, but right now, I'm going to crown him as no longer the king of poop jokes.
Yeah, he's a lot better so far.
What did he say that we actually laughed at?
He said it was something when Korra was coming back, and he was basically going to seduce her or something because he's a man now.
Oh yeah, it was a good joke.
It was a genuinely funny moment.
But it was no longer. He wasn't just snotting all over the place and pooting his panties. So that wasn't a thing we needed to listen to anymore.
I don't think we need to listen to what you just said. Do we get to see Icky in this episode?
I can't remember. Maybe she's dead. Do we care about Icky at all?
She's credited, but I don't remember her. So basically the lives of like the core people have kind of diverged. Mako is now a bodyguard for the soon to be Earth King, which he does not like that.
Because the Earth King is an idiot.
And yeah, he's just a terrible person in general.
At one point in time, he eats a strawberry and says, or a strawberry pie and says, "Oh, is this strawberry? I'm allergic to strawberries." Has a major freak out, and Mako just goes, "You're allergic to bees." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I am. You're right." That's the epitome of this character's like development. That's all this character is. As far as I remember, throughout the entire season, he's just a slapstick.
We don't need to get about what happened.
He's the Jar Jar of this series.
That's fine.
It's dumb, but he's worse than Jar Jar.
So then also Asami is running Future Industries, as she is wont to do.
Which they did sort of set that up in the series. In this series. Yeah, thank you, Harley. In the previous seasons, they set up her rise to a power, give or take.
A little bit,
for lack of a better word.
Not
with what the small amount they did with this character, which just really still makes me mad. What little they did with this character, they did set up her running the. They didn't say why she's running it or how she's running it or why she has the knowledge.
It's just because she owns it by default.
But it's just that she's running it now.
But that's the thing I didn't like, because they set her up like, she's got to go back and be in charge of this country or this company and everything. But they didn't say, she has the skill set to do this. And now, in like 3 years later, she's like, oh yeah, we got this big contract with the city. We're rebuilding. I'm like, I don't believe that you have this knowledge.
Yeah, which is because we haven't seen her have this knowledge because of the 3 seasons we were with her. And also, there are 3 years that she could have the knowledge. But
I understand
we missed out on those 3 years.
Show me that.
So I still don't believe in all these characters, and I still don't believe in Asami and Korra. What little bit we get of her at the end of this episode makes me hate her even more. And
makes you hate Korra?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I like Korra's
the second episode
the best.
I like a lot. The second episode is by far one of my favorite episodes in a long time, probably of all so far. But this first episode, what do you see of her? Her character development is going backwards, in my opinion. From what I've seen in this series, she shows up, she's all spunky and whatnot, she's all excited and she's headstrong, and then she gets herself into some messes, and then her friends get her out of those messes, and then as the series progresses, that keeps happening, and then she'll get herself in a tighter mess, and then they'll be like, hey, let's not do that, Korra. Like her friends will say, let's not do that, Korra. Let's do this. And then she'll do her original plan anyways, which makes it an even bigger mess. And then her friends get her out of that. And then in this series, she's given up on everything she's doing, or in this season, she's given up on everything. She's going her own way. And now she's fighting somebody in like a kind of like a fight club, an underground fight club. And that's what she's doing now. So in my opinion, everything she's tried to work towards, she's given up now, and I hope it pays off in the end of this season, because right now, from what we've seen, her character development has gone backwards, and I don't like that in a character. It makes me not like her as a character.
I don't think her character development's gone backwards. She just went through. She has PTSD. She's just different now. I don't think that. She's not regressing. She just went through some crazy stuff, and now this is how she's progressing forward.
But she stood at one point through three seasons. We saw Aang have more character development than that. Yeah, he was always happy-go-lucky and whatnot, but he had to fight for Katara. He had to fight for his relationships. He butted up against Zuko. He decided, hey, Zuko is like our friend now. He had actual moments where he had to get over things, and Korra's just like, I don't want to get over them. I'm going to fight. And then she loses. And that's why, she lost her connection with the Avatar's she almost got murdered in the last season. Like, this is the reasons why these things happen, and then her friends show up to bail her out almost every single time, and it's an ongoing thing. And I don't like watching the same thing happen over again.
I don't think that. Okay, so I don't think that's a problem with her character development because we're getting all of her character development. She has constantly been put in these positions where her friends come bail her out, and now we get into where she was in a position where her friends could not bail her out. What she originally wanted to do did not work, and now she's dealing with those consequences.
Okay, so you're saying not what I'm saying, obviously, because I'm saying different words. But
thank you for clarifying what just happened.
Emotionally, she's taking steps back.
Yeah, I don't think it's a character
but
development
as a character right now in the fourth season, can you agree with me on the first 3 seasons? She's going in an endless circle. She's doing the same things over and over again. Okay,
but now she's dealing with the consequences.
She's dealing with the consequences. She's realizing that, hey, I need to do this thing my own way, even though it's a stupid thing like Fight Club, but not the movie Fight Club. That movie was amazing. It was not stupid. How dare you? But so she's dealing with the consequences, like you said. Emotionally, she's mentally taking a couple steps back.
Yeah,
but she's working towards a better goal.
Yeah, and I don't know how the season pans out, but I feel like they're setting it up to where she's gonna actually have to have some changes in her character.
I hope so, because I would like to see her character develop. I don't think now when I compared her to Aang earlier, if you want to look at the overall arc of Aang, he didn't have much character development.
Not really.
But he was a likable character, and I think that filled in for the character development. Korra is just doing things wrong all the time.
She has to find her own Avatar way.
Remember in season 3 of Avatar: The Last Airbender?
No, I don't.
That's fine. I will tell you. In season 3 of Avatar: The Last Airbender, when everybody thought Aang was dead, and he wanted to fight everybody when he woke up, and you're like, don't do that. We don't want you to do that. And you kind of got a little mad at Aang there for a little bit. And personally, I did. I got angry every time I saw him. He became really annoying in season 3 because he just wanted to be himself, but he wasn't looking at the logic of everything. That's Korra in every single season so far.
I think Korra always acts in a logical manner, and she always divorces herself from emotion and does what makes the most sense. That's how I've read it.
Are we watching the same show at all?
I just think that
Korra,
she always acts with reason and listens to other people's input.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Remember that time that she disobeyed President Raiko and then a lot of people died?
Okay, no, you can't. President Raiko should have acted differently in that situation.
No, he should have.
Okay,
but remember when she went over his head.
We're talking way too much about Korra for this episode where Korra is literally in it for like 2 seconds.
No, you're true.
So we get more of Bolin. Bolin has joined Kuvira, which is a person they set up in the finale of the season 3.
And you had a good comparison right off the bat.
Did I? Because I don't remember anything I've said on this podcast.
You called her a female Hitler when we watched that episode.
Oh, yes, during this episode.
You did.
Kind of. Because Hitler was...
Would you like to elaborate on that? Yes, go ahead.
Hitler, he whipped Germany into shape. Like, he revitalized industry and stuff. He was a terrible person, but he ruled with an iron fist.
But he had good plans.
Are you going to say he had good ideas?
Not morally good.
No.
But like he wanted to put him on the straight and narrow in his perspective.
Yeah, he unified, and that's a big thing about his rise to power was he wanted to unify Germany after World War II, and it just gave me some strong parallels to Kuvira in this because she's going around and forcing people to unify the Earth Kingdom once again, even though they might not want to.
Yeah, I didn't realize the Earth Kingdom wasn't unified until now. I didn't realize it was a problem until now.
Well, I don't think it ever was because what you had was the Queen, and then people were paying taxes to her, and then in turn the army and stuff, the standing army of the Earth Kingdom, was offering protection for all these people, and they were getting benefits from the taxes they were paying. But now that the Earth King's dead, chaos erupted, and you saw that when they looted the palace. Mm-hmm. So there's no centralized power, and there's no really rule of law anymore. It all just devolved.
I was about to get mad about how it felt forced, but then I remember that whole scene with the Red Lotus destroying the walls and whatnot, and people taking apart the palace. That makes more sense now.
So, I mean, that's basically what Bathar was wanting to get out of it.
I hope that hasn't been like my whole perspective this entire podcast, me just forgetting things
and then
getting,
criticizing
and
it.
This feels forced.
I hated
Well,
how they did
that one
this.
episode.
Yeah. No, they set that up like a minute before that. So Bolin is with Kavira now. He's like one of her dudes, I guess. I don't know. What would you call him? He's like part of the military.
He's like an underling for her, and apparently that's a bit a taboo for the air nomads. They're kind of like, hey, we don't like Kavira and what she's doing with things, but it's not really been said.
Well, no,
that they don't like
it's
it.
not taboo with the air nomads. It is with Opal because Opal.
Oh yeah, Kai agrees with it. Opal does not.
Yeah, Opal is with she used to live with Kavira, and they were sort of. I don't think that the Metal Tribe clan or whatever, Metal City, was necessarily like a part of the Earth Kingdom. I think that they were kind of like not really outcast, but they kind of did their own thing. And now Kuvira is coming in and forcing people to like sign up against their will. And Opal, knowing Kavira, has a big problem with that. Opal and Bolin now are a thing, so they're at odds throughout this entire episode.
There's a lot of conflict going on here because not everybody's on board with the Kuvira thing. And yeah, Kuvira did seemingly come out of nowhere with this nonsense.
And like, so I can tell like through the show, and the show just sort of wants me to know Kuvira is going to be a bad guy. But if you look at it from Bolin's perspective, he's an earthbender, and he has allegiance to the Earth Kingdom. And not necessarily that he's from the Earth Kingdom or anything, but he has that connection. So from his perspective, I can understand why he's with Kavira. He doesn't think she's doing anything wrong. He thinks that they're rebuilding the Earth Kingdom.
And this is where it takes a slight comparison for me.
Oh.
This is almost comparable to when, like, what happened in Avatar: The Last Airbender when the Fire Nation was taking over, but it's a calmer, more subtle approach, and it's actually working because she's forceful, yet on the path of righteousness. And
maybe
Bolin is one of these supposed to be likable characters, and we've seen Batar Jr., who is son of Lin Beifong's
and Opal's sister,
Suyin,
and Kuvira's fiance. Kuvira's fiance, or maybe husband,
fiance. Anyways, so
fiance.
But there's characters connected to Kuvira. If you don't necessarily like Kuvira, there are characters that you're supposed to like Bolin and Batar Jr. by association of Suyin and Opal. These are characters you're supposed to like, and I think Varric's in there with him too. And
Yes.
Varric's kind of been off and on again.
Yeah, I don't understand what his connection. Maybe is he bankrolling it?
I have no idea. But so through her connection, you're kind of getting a more subtler version of the Fire Nation's takeover with the Earth Kingdom from the good guy's perspective.
See, I disagree with that, and where I disagree with that is the Fire Nation went into Earth Kingdom territory and was taking them over because it believed that the Fire Nation had a lot of prosperous times, and it believed that it could translate that over to the Earth Kingdom. Maybe or maybe not. That's what we were led to believe. This is a little bit different because I think that it is more subtle in a way. That's because Kuvira is basically an emissary of the Earth Kingdom and the ruling class in the Earth Kingdom, and she is just trying to restore order. So I think it's a little bit different. At one, there's a direct, like, hostile takeover, and the other one is trying to put back together what was once there. Well, so I think they're a little bit different. I agree that there are some similarities. On how maybe if you look at it from a different perspective, if you take the perspective of someone in the Fire Nation, you can kind of see what they were getting at.
Like what? Because I liked the initial. Because when we first heard about the 100-year war in Avatar: The Last Airbender, you're kind of like, well, this is kind of crazy. You know, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
Good one.
So to speak. And but when they dove into that story, when they delved into a little bit, and turns out Roku's best friend was kind of like, hey, I have a plan for the Fire Nation, and you like Roku because Roku, helped guide Aang a little bit, and then you're getting Roku backstory, and he's a really gentle guy.
You always get like he's really. Let's just talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender now. You always get like he's like this wise character because that's what you've gotten from him so far, and then you realize that he was like young like Aang once, and he had to go through some of the similar stuff that you just think that automatically he's this wise old dude, but it turns out he kind of had some conflicts too.
How are you ever going to get old and wise if you are not young and crazy? I think is the old country adage.
Is that?
It's a song.
I feel like it needs to.
We got off tangent.
It needs
here.
to rhyme.
We got off tangent. What I was trying to say was with his friend. I can't remember what the guy's name was.
The Fire Lord?
The Fire Lord at the time, whatever his name was. Roku's friend.
Not Ozai. Sozin.
He was like, hey, I have a plan for the Fire Nation. And Roku's like, don't do that. And he's like, my plan is to incorporate everything into the Fire Nation, make the Fire Nation everything, because everything is being successful, and I want to share that with you. His idea...
I don't think that he was being genuine, though.
No, his idea was genuine, but his execution of said idea was very chaotic and very controlling.
Okay, so what I disagree with that, and we are just jumping back in, we're just going to talk about Avatar for the rest of this podcast. I think that his idea was not pure. I think that was his justification for wanting to imperialize and expand the Fire Nation. I don't think that he thought, oh, we can share all the prosper that we've had with the rest of the world. I think it was, hey, I want this new territory. This is how I'm going to justify it in my mind. That's what I think.
That could be the case.
No, that is.
No,
I saw it on Wikipedia.
No, it's fine.
On the wiki.
That could be the case. It's always right in the Wikipedia. That could, even though we justify our entire show on the Wikipedia, that could be the case. Or he could just be, that could genuinely be the only thought going through his head is like,
nah, he was evil.
I'm such a good guy. I'm so good.
Nah, he was murderous.
People are genuinely ignorant to that, to how they are.
Nah, yeah, he was bad.
So, he was. He's not a good guy. But, and then he took a turn. He actually did take an open turn, and we saw that with Roku. We're still talking about
Avatar. How does this relate to Korra again?
But he's like, I'm angry. But with the Kuvira thing, she is clearly not an. It's not even. I don't think she's a likable person right now. But she is a take no crap. And she's very strategic with how she fights too. Yeah. When she fought those bandits,
and she's very powerful.
She didn't get hit one time.
No.
And she was just very, precise with what she did, even though she just pulled metal out of nowhere. And
did she?
Remember? Was she just pulling those metal bands out of nowhere? She pulled like a dozen of those things.
Well, she was standing on top of the train, so I guess maybe she could use that.
She was just pulling apart the train.
I think that they were part of her armor.
That's what I thought too. I thought it'd be really cool if she would pull like pieces of her armor off, and we could watch pieces of her armor disappear.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
But we didn't see that. She just reached behind her back and started throwing things.
I think that it was like she had a big like a plate on her back.
Do you think they carry around extra pieces of metal?
That's what it felt like to me.
I think that would be heavy after a while. Do you think they have to metal bend constantly?
Probably.
Just like lift the weight off them?
I guess.
Why
not?
It'd be exhausting.
I mean, they do it anyway. Maybe just get used to it. It's like wearing ankle weights, and then you can just run really fast.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bolin is with Kuvira, and we get to see him and Opal. And Opal and Kai are on like a team. I guess that in the absence of the White Lotus, is the White Lotus still around? Because Korra's at the compound. But I don't know if we see any...
The White Lotus still exists.
Okay, but now the air nomads have turned into like a police force, or more like a security thing where they go around...
I think you called them superheroes.
That's basically what they are.
That whole scene where they fought the bandits and the bandits almost got away, but then they had a plan, and even when the bandits jumped out of the... or got launched out of the Jeep and then Kai saved them, it was all very superhero-y.
They have wingsuits now. They can just fly around. I don't like that.
Bizarre.
Yeah. I don't like... They changed too much all at once with the time skip, too. And I think that's a problem. If you would have shown me Asami's research and development team coming up with the wingsuits, I would probably give him a pass on that.
Cool.
But I think it's too much. Why not just have gliders? Why do we have to jump to wingsuits?
Why did we need season 4?
That's true. This really does feel like it was tacked on season 3. That's the same thing with Parks and Recreation. I think that they were going to end it on the 6th season. But then when they decided to make a 7th season, they had nothing else to do because they wrapped up all the stories and they had to just jump into the future.
Yeah, I want to look into that, though. I want to look into the reasons why. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
13 reasons why.
But just a good show. Not a good example of depression, but a good show. I want to jump in. Like, I want to actually dive into why they decided to make a 7th season for Parks and Rec. Because...
Wait, this is not a Parks and Rec podcast.
No, hold on, because this is going to lead into this. Because all the stories ended, like you said, and they even had Rob Lowe and Rashida Jones' story end like 2 seasons before that.
They died.
They killed him.
And then they brought him back to life.
They left, and and Rashida Jones was with us from the very beginning. Rob Lowe came in season 3, I think, and then they left. And Leslie settled down. Everybody was fine. I still know their names. It's weird, but they all just kind of went, and stayed down. And some people went their own way. And I have a couple ideas of why they wanted a reunion episode, because Rashida Jones and Rob Lowe hadn't been in for a season, I think, and it was kind of like that season with or that episode of the wedding in The Office.
Oh,
when Steve Carell came back for that episode, and you're kind of like, oh, this is so sad. Steve Carell's back. It was like that, but they weren't really the Steve Carell character, so they wanted a reunion. That's my one theory. My other one is they were trying to bank off of the success and celebrity status of Chris Pratt.
I don't think so,
because the last season felt very Chris Pratt oriented. They gave him his own show in there. They made him like a star of the show, and I didn't like that. He was always kind of a background character, and he took like a supporting role.
Well, he got bigger and bigger as the show progressed.
Yeah, not physically, he got smaller.
No, yeah,
but
no, but I mean that just comes with him being a star. I don't think that they purposely said, "Oh, hey, let's use his success now to bring him in, and we'll make a lot of money on this."
I would say that line specifically got tossed around at least one time. I don't think so. They're like, "Hey, Chris Pratt's famous. Let's bank off of that now."
I don't think, because that show was successful.
It was
when it was on. But we're not here to talk about that.
But I think that's how with Korra,
it feels similar, because it does feel, and we talked about this at the end of the last episode. It feels like they wrapped a lot of the previous story up, and they sort of, even though they ended it on like a cliffhanger of Korra. Like Korra being her now, I still feel
but everything had been done.
Yeah, I feel like they wrapped it up, and then they introduced Kavira at the very last second,
which felt forced.
Yeah, it really did.
She wasn't a character that was shown in any of the fighting scenes all through that season.
And they were in the Metal City for a while, and you didn't see her at all.
And they didn't introduce her whatsoever. They even gave the Metal Clan chef a name, and they introduced him a couple times.
Yeah,
but they never introduced Kuvira one time. And at the end, she's like, "Oh, I'm Kuvira." And that was like her line, and you're kind of just like, gross.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's okay. I really want to get to the last season or last episode of this season. I'm not going to talk about what happens.
Let's not talk about it at all, actually.
But I'm not going to. But this is another thing. Now, I'm not that kind of person to say I hate this stuff, but I think this season was made strictly for women. I think it was like feminist stuff. I think it was.
Oh.
We haven't had a woman villain yet. We haven't had a woman villain ever since Azula. And Azula was just like,
she doesn't really count.
She doesn't really count because she wasn't like a first string villain. She was.
Granted,
was like,
there was only one villain in Avatar, basically.
But all the characters have been basically men, and they wanted to give, and we had Korra, even though Korra's a main character. Korra kind of takes her own curve at the end there at the season, and then I feel like they're pandering to a different audience.
I don't know,
and I don't know why you would wait to the last season to do that. Like, from a business perspective, if you think that would be successful, I don't know why you would wait to the last season after your viewership ratings had dropped hundreds of thousands of people. I don't know why you'd wait to the last season.
Not
to try
having
to pander
seen
to that
the
audience.
season, I think it's too early to tell exactly what. From these 2 episodes, I didn't get that.
That's just conjecture, though.
Yeah.
I've seen the whole season, though. That's just conjecture from what I've seen in this season, from its entirety. We're not talking about specifics because I don't want to get into. I guess it's been out for a few years, so you guys wouldn't care if we spoiled it. But if you haven't seen it, spoilers. I don't want to talk about spoilers.
Okay. And we do get Korra at the end of this episode, at the very tail end. We see her fighting, basically. And you're like, oh, Korra's like doing this weird fight thing. And then she gets completely destroyed by her opponent. And we see that she's only using Earth. She's not using any of the other elements. So, and at this point you're thinking, oh, what's exactly going on? Because her hair's cut. It doesn't seem like anyone knows she's the Avatar. She's only using earthbending in the Earth Kingdom. What's going on exactly?
Yeah, and that doesn't. That's another thing is I didn't. The show was over. Okay, with third season, I firmly believe the show is over with third season, and then this episode right here, nothing happens in this episode. Everybody's still happy-go-lucky. There are no immediate
except for Korra.
There are no immediate villains. It seems like it seems if you're gonna look at it, if you're gonna ignore the idea of Kuvira possibly becoming a villain, it looks like the Earth Kingdom is just getting back in check, and some people don't like it. But it looks like everything's in order and everybody's back on track, and then you throw in Korra at the end. The Korra thing felt forced to the forced season of this series, and I don't like that either. It felt like everybody was doing just fine, and you're like, we don't even need this first episode, but the second episode,
I don't know. I feel like this episode worked. I think that after what we got with the last season, with the state of the Avatar is in the most disarray it's ever been in that we've seen so far. She has lost her connection with the past avatars, and then she gets demolished, and they don't know she can't walk or anything. And then they end the threat. There
yeah, but they kind of just hung that up. They're kind of just like, hey, that's the end of it.
That's why I think that this episode works, because they end the threat, and then this sort of shows you, hey, things don't always have to be super crazy all the time. Even though that we got that big time skip, things feel it feels like if you took the normal world, like Earth, our world, and translated it into the Avatar world. That's kind of how things operate, where things aren't like all good all the time, things aren't all bad all the time, but it's just kind of normal. And I think that that's kind of what they're going for after we had all the crazy stuff in the last season. So they set this long episode up at the beginning of the fourth season, and then you're like, oh, things are just they're just happening. And then you get Korra, and you get to see, well, things aren't necessarily that normal. Korra's still going through a lot. So I think it works on that level.
That's acceptable, I suppose. I still don't like it because it just feels like fluff. It feels like 22 minutes of fluff. It feels like 20 minutes of fluff and then 2 minutes of, hey, don't forget Korra's in this show as well.
They kind of had to do that with the time skip, though, which is the bad part about it, because you can't just throw us into the world like they
didn't have to do, though? A time skip.
Oh, that's true. But they just throw us into this world, and they can't just go on to the next episode we're going to get to, which I thought was a legitimately really good episode, because they have to do all this setup for the past 3 years.
Yeah, that's the thing I was about to get into, is that they set up the time skip, and in this entire episode, I think in the next episode too, they talk about, hey, well, what about when Korra was getting better? Well, don't worry, we animated that and we put some dialogue in there, so let's show that to you. That happened in the course of 3 years, and they do that over and over again, and I think that kind of wastes the whole idea of 3 years later.
Yeah,
like that's kind of stupid to me, but.
I honestly think that the next episode
just set up Kuvira as the villain, like 1 year later or the next season. Like that would make sense to me. Why does everybody have to grow up?
Kuvira could have been because they set her up at the end of the third season. She could have been the villain for the fourth season without a time skip. Like I don't think that would have been a stretch at all.
I didn't hate time skips before I sat down and talked about this episode. Because I didn't see a point in hating them, but yes, I hate them now.
I got you to come around to my side of thinking because it's like it
doesn't make any sense.
It's just like a completely separate, like it's not the same characters. And one show that did it extremely well was Lost, because they did time skip, but everything was happening at the same time, and you're always getting flashbacks, and now you're getting flash forwards, and there's flash sideways, and you don't really know what's going.
You got confused.
You don't know what's going on, but it doesn't feel like you're not with the characters you always knew, because the time skip's happening concurrently with the characters, so they sort of transition you. But I don't think I've ever seen another show where they jump forward in time, and I still care about the characters the same way I did before.
No, and I will say this isn't the worst incident of time skips. I will say the worst time skip ever in the history of forever would be Fan Forstic. The 1 year later,
that was bad. That's so a bad. Movie too, so I think it's a little more acceptable in movies.
Is it though?
Yeah,
I will say
because like at the beginning of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
That was really good.
Yeah, so,
because that was a cold open, and then they're like, "Hey, here's 20 years later."
So yeah, it's a little bit different in movies. It was pretty egregious in Fan Forstic.
So bad. And it wasn't even. I don't even think it was the time card's fault. I think it was just
they didn't.
The whole story fell apart after that.
It really did fall apart.
There was no climactic.
I was
ending.
I was in up until that point.
Like even though we're getting off on tangent here again, but this is what this podcast has turned into. We hate Korra so much. But even though you kind of saw what happened with Johnny. You know, his
Johnny Knoxville.
His thing caught on fire. So you're kind of like, okay, he's got flame stuff now. And you saw Ben, even though we didn't know why he came back, we just knew he was friends with Mr. Fantastic. You're like, okay.
He's not, though.
He got rocks thrown into his thing. That's why he's got rock powers. But Sue Storm was back at the base, and you're kind of like, okay, why does she have powers? And then Mr.
like
Fantastic,
yeah,
Mr. Fantastic was creepy and awesome.
Yeah,
though,
it was really cool
because you see a pile of rocks, and you hear what is his name, Reed. You hear Ben say Reed's name over and over again, and it's creepy, it's eerie, and you see him crawling towards Ben, or the pile of rocks at least, and you're like, okay, what's going on here? And he keeps crawling, and then
zoom out,
and then he can't find him, and he's like, I think I'm in this pile of rocks, and then he turns around and it zooms out, and it shows that his torso is now with the pile of rocks, but his entire body leads back to like that where his legs are trapped. I feel like 30 feet before that.
The movie was built around that scene because it's so good.
It was such a good scene.
Yeah.
And I want to, like, the only reason why I'd want to own that movie is for that scene and the build up for the origin story of Fantastic Four.
Yeah. Because it legitimately did. The first half of the movie was good. It was really good.
It was good. Like, if the only reason why people nitpick the first part of the movie is because the second half of the movie fell apart.
Yeah.
Terribly.
It was bad.
And so you can sit there and be like, okay, so we have the second half of the movie is a good reason why this movie sucks. Let's go ahead and tack on every little bitty detail in the first half just to add layers to why we hate this movie. But the first half of the movie of Fantastic is decent. It's acceptable. If the second half of the movie was at least half as good, it would have been a decent movie and it would have made money at the box office.
So, Harley, how does this relate to Korra again?
I don't know.
Time skips. We weren't even talking about Korra when we were talking about time skips. Okay. I think that wraps it up for this episode, right?
Yeah, I think we've pretty much hit everything over and over and over again.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to talk about the second episode in Season 4. And we're back, coming to you live from Santa Fe, Australia. This is the second episode of this episode, I guess one would say. And we are going to talk about the episode Korra Alone. You might remember that from Avatar, where Korra is all by herself for one episode. Harley, why don't you read the overview if you weren't texting on your phone right now and actually had it pulled up?
I do have it pulled up. So, Korra Alone is the second book of Book 4.
Second
episode.
Thank you.
I skipped ahead a few words there. Book 4, Balance. And the 41st of the overall series. And it's another one of those episodes. The rest of the season, I'll just say it, was released online.
So was this released on
Nick.com?
It was all on Nick. So the fourth season is entirely Nick.com.
But also through the Nickelodeon app.
Nice.
Yeah.
Isn't that that's just Nick.com though,
it's
right?
The swellest. So as Korra is haunted by a shadow of herself in the Avatar state, she reminisces about the hardships she has endured the past 3 years. In 171 AG, after being poisoned by the Red Lotus, God bless it, 3 years ago, after being poisoned by the Red Lotus, she retreated to the Southern Water Tribe in an attempt to heal her body and her mind. Although she was able to recover physically after 2 years with Katara's help.
Wow.
Korra continued to have visions about Zahir and the attempt on her life. In 173 AG...
3 years from the previous 3 years ago.
Thank you. She set out on a journey across the world in an unsuccessful attempt to reconnect with Rava. In the present, 174... So in the present, while wandering through a small Earth kingdom she decides to confront the vision of herself in a duel and loses. But a small dog begs her to follow it. She finds herself in a fucking...
Wait, hold on.
What are you doing?
This is like the plot point. She battles herself and she loses. But a small dog. Is that like necessary for the overview?
Yes.
No, it's not.
Yes. It's in the overview, so I'm reading it. When a small dog begs her to follow it, she finds herself in the foggy swamp. After another confrontation with her avatar self, she passes out and wakes up in Toph's home.
Oh, yeah.
Is Toph there? Is Toph alive? Is Toph still a woman? Find out when we get past this overview in 5, 4, 3.
Too long.
Okay.
Yes, Toph is there. It is actually Toph. She is a woman, and she is alive. Is that all the questions that you asked?
All those questions
You have now found out.
immediately answered.
Okay. Well, we're going to jump back to the beginning of this episode because it's basically a flashback for a considerable portion.
Which is why, again, I hated this season.
I really like this episode, though. This is a really good episode.
No, I do. That sounds like I'm being hypocritical here. Or, no.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, I think so.
Back and forth here. I hate the season, but I do love this episode so much because I when I think of loving this episode, though, I think of for the shadow of herself. And every time she confronts it, especially the final time she confronts
It's creepy.
Yes, because it's very creepy because she looks up and the spirit, the doggy, woof, woof.
I think that's the funniest part. Because what if the overview just like went into like really grueling specific detail about the dog, and that's the most important information you need to know about this. It was a small dog, probably about 2 feet off the ground.
Roughly,
is that a small dog?
5 pounds. No, it's not a small dog. That's
2 feet.
It's like a large dog.
I mean, how big is a large dog, though?
A large dog is categorized as 60 plus pounds.
Okay, so a really thin. So wait, hold on. You're telling me
It's a
if
wispy
you got
thin.
a really thin like Saint Bernard, that's a small dog.
I don't like a dying Saint Bernard.
Yeah,
It's a
like
large
on
dog
death's
breed,
door.
but it's dying.
But what if it's
That's
under
your category?
What if it's under 60 pounds? Then technically that's a small dog, right?
Technically, it's dying.
Okay, that's not important.
Anyways, so about the dog, then we got off on a tangent here.
Yeah, let's get back
So,
to this dog. That's
The
so
third
important.
time she sees the shadow, she falls down or something like that, and
Well, let's start from the beginning because
I really want to get into the shadow though.
we don't need to talk about the dog.
We're gonna jump around here. So
So-
can we just get in the shadow real quick?
No, we can't because
Before I forget.
it starts out. We just need to set up a little bit of groundwork, Harley. Just go with me a little bit. So we start out where she's fighting. She's lost. We get to see just a little bit more how she uses water bending or fire bending at one point, and some people almost catch her. So we get to see that she is actually on the lam. People don't know that she's the Avatar. And then it sort of cuts back to right after everything happened. Right after she was put in her wheelchair and shipped off to the White Lotus compound. And it's almost like that Losty thing where we're given enough of her as she used to be versus as her now. So it doesn't feel as jarring with her like transition from then to now. It's not done as well as Lost, but we get some insight to what happened. So we see her ship off from Republic City. She vows to be pen pals with Bolin, and she says, "Oh, bye, Asami." And she kind of has an awkward moment with Mako. And then we sort of get to see that progress throughout where she's not really writing people back, and she's just kind of sad. She's depressed, really, because she's lost connection with Rava, who she still had connection with, even though she didn't have access to the Avatar state or the other avatars. She still had Rava, but now that's all gone.
This is where I come in.
Yeah,
And this
because
is
I talk for a little bit longer than I usually
You
do.
talked for a lot of bits, so I thought you were going to keep going.
Now, I wanted to give you a little bit of chance to say something.
I liked it.
As conversations work.
As conversations do, there's a little back and forth, a little repartee, as you would.
And now I'm going to say something, and now you speak.
Okay, so on with what I was going to say before I was rudely interrupted by my co-host here.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about you rudely interrupting.
Okay.
Me. So with Korra here, I think there's certain elements of this show that give off that represent certain ailments. Like I think the way they portray her in this first or the second episode, I should say, is a really good portrayal of depression. For animation, it's not top notch, but it's decent enough to not be like, hey, you're just crapping on everybody who has depression. Because sometimes when you do become depressed, you become self-destructive, like with her Fight Club tendencies. Like she's just going out of her way and just kind of like, I don't know if the shadow of herself is a way of blaming herself. I don't know, but we'll get into that in the next episode or the next, however long it takes to get into that. But she's becoming kind of just detached to everything, and she's abandoned her family. She's abandoned her friends. Nobody knows where she's at.
Yeah. And also what's kind of cool is you were saying that they said it like her Fight Club and her Fight Club. It's not really Fight Club, but that's what we're calling it. It's self-destructive, and it shows her depression in that way. But she wasn't like that, because they go back in some of the flashbacks where she's actually hopeful, and Tenzin comes to see her, and she's doing better. She's got like some of her motor skills back and her bending, and we get to see her being actually helpful, but she's still discouraged a little bit because she's not at where she was.
So,
because everything always came easy to her, all the bending and everything except for maybe air. But now she's disconnected with everything, and she's struggling.
but the question is, what was the change? Because when we left her off in last season, she was the word you used, discouraged. She was upset. She was downtrodden.
She was definitely depressed.
She was
at the
in
end.
a wheelchair,
Yeah.
and she was definitely depressed.
Oh my goodness. Suicidal, maybe.
Maybe. Who knows? She would know, but she's an animated character, and we can't get into her head. But so at the end of
Or
that season,
can we?
the last
and
thing,
then it cuts to us in like a lab doing some stuff. We figure out how to go into her head.
that would really translate well on a podcast.
Yes, it
You're
would.
right.
You just hear beakers clanking in the background, just like, and it's just us pouring potions in it. And then at
Caleb,
one
that was
point,
actually an Erlenmeyer flask. There's
Oh,
a difference between
sorry.
a beaker and an Erlenmeyer
I only
flask.
had Erlenmeyer flasks. Sue me. Okay, what were we speaking of?
No idea.
So she starts off this episode, or
No, hold on. The difference is between why she was different.
oh yeah,
The difference between why she was different. Thank
very
you,
good, very good English.
She was upset and messed up in the last episode, or in the last episode in the last season. But in this episode, the next time we see her, she's still messed up. But we see a flashback between in that 3-year period that we haven't seen anything happen yet, between the last episode of the last season and this episode now, where she was happy because she had gotten her abilities to walk back. She had gotten her ability to use her bending back. She was actually kicking butt out there on the field. But at one point in time in the field, while she was sparring with the other White Lotus characters, she loses focus. And she gets knocked back to the ground. And is it Tenzin who was there?
Yeah.
He's like, "Whoa, we gotta chill out here for a little bit."
I feel like Tenzin is I don't really like how he came off there. He's like, oh well, you still need stuff to you.
I mean, he's
you're
right.
not quite there. Yeah, but you don't say that. Like it's very condescending.
loser.
Yeah, it's very condescending the way that he comes off, because she's like, look at what I'm doing, Tenzin, and then rather than being like, great job, Korra, you're actually really making good progress, he's like, hold on, let's not get too optimistic.
Your mother and I are disappointed.
Yeah, basically.
So why is she still upset then? What is ruining her? What is torturing her so much that she is still downtrodden? Is my question.
So she is kind of in better spirits, and we cut to about a year before the first episode. So it's been 2 years, and she is just now writing anybody back, and she's only writing to Asami. She says that she just didn't know exactly what to say, and she didn't think Mako and Bolin would really understand what she's going through.
For future references, I have noted in my head that she did message only Asami. I do recognize that. Proceed, Caleb.
So she, I think about, what is it, like 6 months before, so 6 months before the events of the first episode, she actually does set sail to go back to Republic City, because she's got basically all her abilities back, just not to the level they were, and she doesn't like have access to Rava or anything. And she sails into Yue Bay, and she's almost there, and she sees this figure. Where is the figure at? Is it on top of Aang's statue or on the rock next to that?
It's somewhere nearby.
And it's really creepy, and I love the way they did it, because it's Korra, and she's still got long hair. She's got the Avatar state eyes, and she's got a chain wrapped around her arm.
And it was the chain that she had wrapped around her arm when she broke herself free of the Zahir's capture.
And I think this is the first time that she's seen this vision, and she, at that moment, she's like, oh, I can't go back yet. There's still something going on, even though she doesn't really know how to handle it or what to do. She just knows she can't go back yet. So she takes off, and she goes to places. She's basically Edward Norton in The Incredible Hulk.
It's basically Edward Norton
kind
Fight
of.
Club. She sees another version of herself,
But-
and then she goes to Fight Club.
Okay, yes, true. But also, maybe she's just Edward Norton, the extended Edward Norton verse, because in The Incredible Hulk, he's moving around all over the place because he doesn't really fit in anywhere and he's having problems. So maybe she's an allegory for Ed Norton.
That's what it is.
Yes, we've solved that's. They were going to end on the 3rd season, and Michael Dante DiMartino went, I got this great idea for like an Ed Norton type character. And I got
Revenge of the Avatar.
We got to do it now.
Norton. That's the next series coming out.
Edward Norton. Yeah. Avatar, the last Edward Norton.
Avatar Norton.
Okay, so she takes off, and she goes to the spirit world first. She goes back there to go to the Tree of Time. Is that what?
Yeah, it's the one. It's called. It's the one where they bust it out
because she's trying to connect to Rava.
What's the other one? Batu.
Batu.
Where they busted out Batu.
Yeah, so she's trying to go back there. I don't know why it doesn't kind of work how it did before, because the tree doesn't work at all. It doesn't give her visions or anything. She's just talking to a bunch of spirits.
And we think that's because she's not in tune to her avatar state anymore, which I don't... Why...
I don't know.
Why did we discuss last episode why she could get into the avatar state when she fought Zahir if she had lost touch with her?
Well, they forced her into it. I think that's what we were going with.
That was the pain she was experiencing then?
Yeah, I think that's what screwed her up, is because she couldn't really do it, but they were forcing her to do it. Because she was like jumping out of it a little bit.
They bypassed Korra and went to the avatar state. And that was messing her up.
Yeah, so it's something to do with that.
Anyways, that was weird. Sorry, that was just me forgetting things. So from there, she kind of just goes back to the Fight Club thing, and she gets her butt kicked, yeah. But then she gets the pay from the guy and whatnot, and then she leaves, and she's kind of just...
Hey, here's your money for your crappy performance or whatever.
Yeah,
he says something like that.
Something like that.
Which it's still money. It's kind of like Nacho Libre.
But she looks him right in the eyes and says, I missed the part where that's my problem. And then her uncle gets shot, and it's the best Spider-Man portrayal ever.
She almost had a chance to push the killer out of a window, but she doesn't do it.
She doesn't do it. But so she goes forward, and she looks like she's kind of just, I don't know.
She's kind of out of it.
She is.
She just got beat up. Like she got the crap kicked out.
But
of
it
her.
looks deeper than that. It looks like she's constantly been like not really within herself. Like
she's having an existential crisis.
Almost like she's stepped back and somebody else is taking control of her physical body. Is what it kind of looks like.
And we see that she has, because she goes to like wash herself off in the lavatory, as our friends across the pond would say, and she sees none other than the ghostly apparition of her former self.
And this is now the second time we've seen this?
I think so. Second or maybe third. She might have seen it like briefly.
And maybe the second time she's seen this. We think we're seeing it as many times as she's seen it. But is this also the time where she almost gets hit by the vehicle and then...
Yes. Because
falls into the alleyway.
She's kind of running away from it. She doesn't want to face it.
Yeah. And she starts shooting like fire at it in an alleyway, and then the camera does this cool thing where it pans out. It's a cool thing it does. And then the audio. And then
I mean, when we say camera, it's
not a camera.
It's animated.
It's animated. But the civilians who are walking by, the passerbys, are just kind of like, "Whoa, what are you doing there?" And we see that she was just shooting flames at nothing, at thin air. And they're like, "Are you okay, ma'am?" And she kind of looks around. She realizes that nothing is there. There is no shadow of herself. And she kind of freaks out, and she runs off. And I think this is when she is all alone again, and she runs into the another shadow of herself, and the puppy.
Well, yeah, but this time, no, yeah. So she sees the shadow of herself, kind of like up on like a little hill, like in the distance, and then the dog runs up to her and barks at the spirit.
And this is what I wanted to talk about earlier. This is what when I think of how good this episode is, because I really like it, I immediately think of how this shadow creature looks just eerie.
Yeah.
Like you kind of almost get goosebumps on your body. Like you're watching the show. It's just an animated show. Obviously, it's not real, but whatever. But it's kind of it's an eerie feeling, and she looks creepy. And
I know it's just an animated show, but I've had to sleep with my lights on for the past week.
All 4 of them.
Yeah.
And she just kind of freaks out. And she's like, "No, you're not real." But then the dog starts barking at it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then she's like, "Oh, you see it too." And as soon as she says that, like the hairs are standing on the back of my neck as I'm saying this, because this is what I think of when I think of this episode, because it's creepy, and I just love creepy stuff. Like why can this spirit also see this shadow
Or
creature.
this dog. Why can this dog...
This puppy.
As we...
Not a spirit.
It's not a spirit. It definitely disguises a dog. No. But then the dog like leads her away into the it's like a swamp forest.
I think
outside of this town.
Is this one? No, yeah. Okay. Later is when she gets whooped up by the thing.
Yes, that's in the forest.
Yeah.
So the dog leads her away, and they walk into the forest, and the spirit reveals itself as, or the dog reveals itself as one of the spirits that she met while she was in the spirit world.
What? This dog has been a spirit the whole time? Good thing we didn't spoil that 3 or 4 times.
So that's how I was able to see this like. So do we have like a grasp on what it actually is?
See, I don't know.
Is it a figment of her imagination? Is it like like Rava is in turmoil or something because it's disconnected from the avatar?
I don't know, because a lot of physical stuff that we see happen to her happens in this forest. So I don't know if it's just...
I think, okay, so I don't want to derail this, but I want to say this before I forget about it.
I've derailed this like 5 times.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So maybe that's why she was able to access the avatar state. They were, like the serum or whatever they're using was activating Rava. Instead of actually like the avatar state as we know it through Korra, they're just tapping into Rava, and that's why she lost access with Rava, because it poisoned whatever.
Did we ever see a reconnect with Rava and Korra?
Not at this point, no.
So,
and I don't know what happens later. I'm assuming something like that happens, or is it just the end of the Avatar? But yeah, so at this point, she's walking into the forest after a spirit who's leading her somewhere. We don't know exactly where, but then the ghostly apparition shows up once again, and this time Korra ain't backing down.
Never back down, like that Fight Club movie,
or like Jack Reacher. Never go back.
Is that really... That's a sequel name?
Yeah, Jack Reacher, Never Go Back.
I bet that wasn't very good.
It wasn't that good. I love Jack Reacher. I think it's one of the best like book to movie action movies.
Book to movie adaptations?
I mean, but like specifically action movies, because like you got Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. But like for just like that genre of action movie, like I really love Jack Reacher. The second one, I'd take it or leave it.
Didn't do it for you?
No, not really. Anyway, Korra is going to fight the apparition now because it's time to face her fears or whatever is causing this to happen. And that was a big mistake because she is in no way, shape, or form fit to fight this thing that is very powerful.
And it actually starts kicking her butt. Like there's a lot of things going on here. We see her. I can't remember what all happens, but I specifically, even looking at the screen right now, remember her falling into that weird pool of metal, which I guess I don't know if it's like the metal that went into her body before.
I think that's what it's supposed to be because it's
supposed
like
to
a
signify
liquid.
that. So does that mean this is all in her head, or is she actually experiencing all this in real life? Maybe this has like this swamp has some spirit nonsense going on with it.
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
I don't know either
because it's the fight is pretty cool because it's basically Korra trying to get away, and this thing trying to throw the chain that it has wrapped around her arm and grab Korra and pull her into it. And it ends up doing that after, I mean, I don't even know what goes on because we don't know exactly what's real and what's not real because it ends up turning into like a pool of that liquid metal that they put in her to turn her into the avatar state, and it sucks her down in, and she's fighting the entire time to get out. And then it just goes black. And we don't know what happened until Korra wakes up and she's in a different part of the jungle in a cave with a person there. So was she just sitting there and this was all going on in her mind and then someone found her?
I don't know.
Like that's
like she was just freaking out because I know from I've never experienced PTSD. But in PTSD, your brain kind of short circuits.
Yeah.
And then your body kind of keeps going and doing weird things. And so you kind of, like one time, there's an actual real life example of what happened with me. I was helping a guy build a deck one time, and he cut his hand open. And he started talking to me, and he goes, I got to warn you, I'm about to have an incident. He knew because he had done it so often. She's very new to this, obviously. But he looked at me and he goes, I'm about to have an incident. And so as soon as he saw the blood, you could see in his eyes that his brain just kind of...
Something else was happening.
It was done. And then he started talking about like military stuff.
Yeah.
Like he started talking about like we were in the military, we were in the desert, we were wearing our uniforms, and I have never been in a military uniform. So I'm just like, I got to pretend, I got to play along, man. And so the entire time he played out this scene in his entire mind, like he was doing the military things. He thought he had his gun in his hand, which was the shovel. Like he was playing out this entire scene until his brain came back too, and he was all right. He phased back into it. So I'm assuming that's what's happening with her, is that she thinks this is what's going on because of her PTSD, because we're labeling it as PTSD now, aren't we?
I'm not a doctor, but
That's the label you threw out at the beginning. We're going to roll with that. So we're going to say she has PTSD, and for you who don't know, that's people toast dramatic syndrome. That's
PTDS.
Yes.
So she has PTDS. And that's what we're going with. People toast dramatic syndrome. So I think that
it's when you smell toast
weird.
around people.
It's
your
weird
brain
though,
short
because
circuits.
the dog could see it. The spirit.
Yeah,
that's what I don't know.
Is she seeing the spirit too, though?
Is this?
Maybe it goes deeper than that.
know.
Maybe she's imagining the spirits.
Maybe I don't know what's going on yet.
Because
it's way too early to
spirits
tell.
just hang out at the spirit tree.
This is actually a good kind of cliffhanger, in that the story's still progressing, but you don't know what's going on, rather than what we get from some of the other stuff.
But why don't you go and tell us who the person was in the cave?
Yeah, so it turns out that Toph Beifong, who, if you remember, was one of the original Avatar crew in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, she's still kicking.
She's still blind.
She's still a woman.
That's for sure.
Yeah. And
you can tell that straight away.
And she immediately recognized Korra as the Avatar.
Kind of.
And she called her Twinkle Toes.
Yeah, because she doesn't...
And that was kind of a cute moment.
Was it?
That I got the fuzzies for.
I don't know about that.
It gave me heartwarming. No, I hated it.
But
I hated
I
it
think
so much.
The line they use, like, do I know you or something like that? And it's like, well, kind of. Like, I kind of know who you are.
No, you don't.
In a certain sense. But yeah, so Toph is in exile for some reason.
I think she exiled herself.
Yeah, but I don't think it's necessarily, oh, get away from us, Toph. But she is in exile. And she's living in this cave, so she probably just found Korra.
So the question is, Caleb, do we want to conjecture, talk about? Do we want to hypothesize why Toph is exiled, or do we want to wrap this episode up?
I think that we're probably going to get an explanation for that in the next episode.
So I guess we're going to wrap this episode up.
I think so. There is some more trivia for this episode than there were last one.
And by last one, I mean we didn't do trivia at all for the last episode, son.
Because they're all, and most of this one, even though I kind of like these better, they're just like, oh, this is referenced in Avatar: The Last Airbender. So here we go. Korra Alone was named after the Avatar episode Zuko Alone, which
I think you covered,
of course,
at the beginning.
Yeah, I just didn't. Looking at this episode, I didn't know what the name of this episode was until we went to the Wikipedia page, because we just put it on and played it after the first one, and I think it's really cool the way they did that, because it's a callback, but it doesn't drive the story like some of the other stuff, like Zuko or Iroh, General Iroh. Like, I don't like necessarily how he is like the general of the military now.
I forgot he was a character, if I'm not gonna lie to you.
I don't like how they're doing callbacks for the sake of doing that, but then also inserting them into story points. But I think this is cool. And Korra cutting her hair recalls a similar scene from the Avatar state in which Zuko and Iroh cut their top knots after they become fugitives of the Fire Nation. Haven't we heard this trivia before? Who else cuts their hair in a similar manner?
I don't have an answer to that.
I don't know.
The only person I can imagine getting their haircut.
Janora Aang cuts his hair at one point.
I think Zahir cuts his hair because he had long hair from prison.
But there was another one where they like cut the. Maybe it was probably Azula when she cuts her hair herself, something like that.
It was within Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
D. Bradley Baker is not credited for this episode, despite there being several animal noises, including the barking dog, Pabu, and Naga. So, what do you think happened there?
I think they fired D. Bradley Baker for one episode
And then they brought him back.
because he had to go finish voicing Obi-Wan Kenobi on the Clone Wars.
We don't need to talk about the Clone Wars. A scene of Tone Rock pushing Korra in her wheelchair in the Southern Water Tribe Royal Palace was cut from the final storyboard because I don't know why.
Why do they have to cut that?
And I don't know how you get that. How do you get that trivia? And that's the only thing they cut?
That's some quality father-daughter bonding right there.
And I don't care about it. This episode, and this is a surprising piece of trivia, this episode is Janet Varney's favorite episode. That's not so surprising. As well as one of Michael Dante DiMartino's favorites to write. Still not surprising. Here's the surprising part, and I mentioned that there was a little bit of surprise at the top of the episode, and here it is. It was also the People's Choice Award winner for Best Television Episode in IGN's Best of 2014 for television. So, Harley, what beat it, or what did it beat out that year?
So the list is as follows. The Leftovers, Louie, The Americans, Fargo, Parks and Recreation, Hannibal, Penny Dreadful, and Game of Thrones.
And True Detective.
No, I think True Detective got another award.
Yeah, it did get another award. But
I think there's the People Choice Award, and then there's the Critics' Choice Award. I think True Detective won the Critics' Choice Award, and Legend of Korra won the People's Choice Award. So they both won.
It did, but it didn't win the People's Choice Award. So Korra beat it for that.
I don't think it would have been nominated for that.
No, these are the list of total nominees for that. And
I don't think that's how that works.
it is how it works. I'm just saying. I'm reading what's on the page.
I'm going to say these are all the nominees and then one winner for each one. I don't think Legend of Korra is going to win both Critics and People's Choice Award because you can't get both of them. That's what I think.
No, you could probably get both of them.
I don't think you can.
What I'm saying is they have a list of nominees.
Hmm?
The people chose one. The critics chose another. But Korra did win for People's Choice.
I think they have the 10 list of the nominees. God bless it. The list of 10 nominees right here for both categories, but you can't win both of them out of this list of nominees.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't know where you're getting this from.
Oh, I don't know
what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is there's 10 nominees. Okay, you following me?
I'm tracking.
And then you have the critics. They picked one of those 10 nominees, right? The people picked another one. So in the people's eyes, Korra beat the rest of them. Is what I'm saying. That's just what it appears for me. Does that make sense?
I'm thinking it's the same nomination for all 10 of them, but you can't win both.
I don't know where. We don't have anything to base that on, though.
We don't have anything to base what you're saying off of either.
Yeah, we do.
We don't.
We do, because we know that the critics chose one, and we know the people chose one.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say they can't win both, because they could.
I'm saying,
theoretically.
I think you can't win them. And if you're also saying you think they can, we're at the same stalemate here, as we always are, by having no proof for either one of our prerogatives.
I think mine makes more sense, though.
It can make more sense in your head.
I think it does.
You know what's cool about you having an idea and me having an idea is that we're two totally different people.
No, but
therefore we're experiencing the same thing differently. Therefore we can have different perspectives.
This isn't strictly opinion. I think that it makes more sense that if you have a list of 10...
It may make more sense, but we don't have proof that that happens.
No,
unless you were to scroll to best 2015 or so forth, and you see one where maybe
I'm not going to do all that.
Legend of Korra maybe got nominated for both of them.
But what I am going to say
until that happens, I'm disagreeing with you.
Okay, but what I am going to say about your point is you are basing it on absolutely nothing. You're actually adding more constraints to it that you couldn't possibly...
I'm not, though.
No, you are.
No, listen. No, you have given me 10 nominations.
Yes, I see those 10 nominations.
And of these 10 nominations,
yes,
you get 2 winners.
We have 2 winners.
Listen, of these... Do not interrupt me. Of these 10 nominations, you get 2 winners of 2 separate categories, but they are just the winners of these. That's a bad way of saying this. You have, okay.
I think your logic's breaking down a little bit.
It's not. I know what I'm saying. I just don't know how to say what I'm thinking. Okay, so you have these 10 nominations of Game of Thrones, Penny Dreadful, Hannibal, Louie, The Americans, The Leftovers, Parks and Rec, Fargo, The True Detective, and Legend of Korra. Okay, you have those 10 nominations. And then of those 10, this is what I'm thinking here. It could be all not possible. You have the 10 nominations, and then of those 10 nominations, they're being nominated for the same thing. They're both being nominated for IGN's Choice Award, and they're both being nominated for People's Choice Award, okay? So of those 2 things, since one of those things, True Detective, got nominated for the IGN's choice, the Critics' Choice Award, whatever. Since it won that award, that means that has now been taken off the docket of these 10 choices. So now there are 9 choices left for People's Choice Awards, or vice versa, whichever one gets chosen first. Say Legend of Korra got chosen for People's Choice Award, so now that one has been taken off the docket. There are now only 9 options left for the IGN's Critics' Choice Award. Okay, but it still has to remain within these 10 slots.
That's what I'm saying. So what you're doing is adding another constraint that we have.
Though.
No, listen. You are adding a constraint that because this one has won one, it can't win another.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Is since you've won one, you can't win another. That's what I'm saying.
You're adding that constraint on there when there's no proof of that whatsoever. What I'm looking at is a list of 10 nominees.
I'm also looking at that list.
We have 10 nominees. Those are what's nominated for Best TV Episode of the Year. We have one of those, True Detective, winning the critics. And then the people chose another one. So I think that you could win both of them, but they just ended up landing on 2 different things.
And I'm saying, until I've seen the same show or somebody from IGN telling me that it's possible for one thing to win both of those awards, that I'm disagreeing with you.
But, okay, so mine works on its own. Yours, you have to add that separate constraint that they can only win one of them. So just by strict logic, mine makes more sense.
No.
Yes, it does.
No.
We're not gonna resolve this. Sound off on Twitter. What do you think? At Boys in the Berg. We will not put a poll up because that takes too much work. But tell us.
And also, we don't know how.
Yeah. I could figure it out.
But
believe me.
But currently, at this moment, we don't know how.
Or if you would like a direct line of communication, go to boysintheiceberg@gmail.com and shoot us an email. Please tell us which one is right. I have a feeling I know who it's going to be. Me. But we'll let you guys decide unless you decide Harley, and then I will remain adamantly in my position and not cede a single bit of ground. As always, I've been Caleb Bader.
And I'm Harley Davis.
We are the Boys in the Iceberg, and we'll see you here next week.